Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you, Jersey First TV and the Nader Narrative. Many people say the sign of a well-functioning society is that you take care of, watch out for, and protect our most vulnerable. We don't always do a good job of that, however, and when we don't, we need to hold each other accountable. We have an issue here in New Jersey that we think it's urgent for everyone to know about, and that has to do with a community of people who need us to support and protect them. And those are the adults that have special needs. And these adults that are in adult special need homes throughout the state of New Jersey. We have a sad story that happened in 2017, and it was to a 33-year-old man, Billy Cray. Sadly, he was found dead in his room at an adult home in New Jersey, and obviously something had happened to Billy. He was found unresponsive, he was bloodied, and while there was no sort of final determination of what happened and who hurt him, clearly there had been abuse, and it wasn't the first time. So we lost a soul in a place that never should have happened. He should have been protected. And as a result, his mother and many other people who are committed to really supporting people in this community and protecting them have demanded that we have some way of watching what's going on in these homes. And we have legislation that can do that, but it's not moving as quickly as it should be through the Senate. So today I'm so pleased to bring onto the show Aileen Rivera, as well as Senator Ed Durr. Welcome to both of you to Jersey First TV. We're glad to have you here. Aileen, I'm going to start with you. I want you to just tell us a little bit of your background, just real quickly, of why you are fighting in the special needs community.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me here at your hosting me to speak today regarding this matter that's so important to me. And I also want to say thank you to Senator Durr. I know he's doing everything at his reach and power for this bill to be put on the floor for a vote. The reason I'm doing this is because, I have a son with disabilities, and in 2010, he was hurt and physically abused beyond recognition. And I never thought I would be advocating. It's not like I woke up one day and said, because of all the cover up and the way they handled it, they didn't even call me to tell me my son was hurt. My son told me, because I would call him every day, to just say hi to him. And because of what occurred, like I said, I had no choice because my friend Martha Cray also, who helped me, we reached out to the media. And then, of course, sadly, because the media got involved, then that's when attention was given to this. Trying to make that I'm alone, and I did feel like I was alone. And I guess they felt that I would not say anything. I would just leave it alone and just go away. But I couldn't. When looking at my son the way he was almost handed to me, lifeless. He really was, because he had black and blue eyes. He had broken molars. His back was hurt. I mean, the list is long of everything that occurred. So that birthed a new me, and I've been advocating since then.
Well, and it's a natural for you.
I'm sorry. I had started before that, but yeah.
It's a natural for you. You've also been a community servant, in general, Aileen, and we appreciate that. Senator Aileen has her story, but, obviously as well, this Billy Cray story, his mother's name is Martha, is really heartbreaking. This bill got introduced over 2 years ago. What's going on? First of all, let's go into detail about the bill itself. We're calling it Billy Cray's Law. It's pretty simple, Senator. What does it require in these homes?
It's very simple. As you said, it's electronically monitoring devices, cameras installed in common areas, and only at the request of the caregiver or the guardian of the individuals to be placed in rooms. And if it's in a joint room, then you have to have the permission of both. This bill has already been certified and checked by OLS and by the lawyers. It doesn't violate your First Amendment rights. It doesn't violate HIPAA laws. It doesn't violate any laws whatsoever. It is a good bill. This bill should move. As you said, this has been, presented prior, and for some reason it never made the floor, right. And so, given my, involvement into the special needs community through people I know, I came aware of this bill. And then when Martha and Aileen reached out to me, I said, absolutely, I will sponsor this bill. And I grabbed it and I put it forward. And I've worked hard. I've gotten bipartisan support on it. I have Democrats and Republicans. I have the votes in the committee. I have the votes on the floor. I've got over 25 votes on the floor. We only need 21. I got 25 already committed to vote for it.
Wow. Yet
But
it's not moving. So, Senator, I just want to go over quickly again what's in the bill. We're talking about something pretty simple here, and that is the ability to install cameras in common areas, first of all, and it would be in agreement of the residents. So it's not as though they will be tracked without their desire to be seen on these cameras. And then if they want in their own rooms, as the bill reads, they can have them installed there as well. I believe it's at their cost, but that's really, really simple. This would be a deterrent, would it not, Senator, to somebody who may want to abuse somebody who is vulnerable?
Well, absolutely. This is something that would be an added pair of eyes, so to speak, to keep an eye on things. As people like to argue and say, when they talk about, police having body cameras or cameras being in government buildings, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Well, then why are they so opposed to it if they're not doing anything wrong? So, and I applaud the staff who works in these places, but we all know there are bad actors in all industries and all fields. And this will keep an eye and protect. And as you said earlier, this is the least we can do for our most vulnerable community. So yeah. I don't see the reason why we cannot get this moved forward.
Well, let's talk about some of the people who are against it. Aileen, I have a quote that's attributed to Kathy Chin, who's executive director for the Alliance for the Betterment of Citizens with Disabilities. That's the name of the organization, okay, which is a little ironic considering she's apparently against this bill. She shared with the committee at one point a research paper that found that cameras in homes of people with intellectual disabilities, and that's kind of the group that we're talking about here, adults with intellectual challenges, raises a level of distrust from employees and the families and gives a false sense of security. What's wrong with that argument?
She is not having a clear view of what's going on. You're asking me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not having a clear view of what's really going on. The cameras are critically important to have because it's critical because it helps with understanding with what happened, so that it could be dealt with and prevented in the future. And any improper sharing of the data, in my opinion, should then be punished. We have a situation where there's a lot of unexplained and mysterious injuries that surface a lot of these intellectual disabled individuals, okay? And the cameras provide transparency. It'll be clear if it was maybe slip and fall, that someone got hurt because they slipped and fell. It'll also provide, if injuries were inflicted on a person by someone, it'll reflect it, or if the person was abused. But also it will also help someone that's being wrongfully accused. So it's so important. So it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, yeah. I would think and hope that these agencies would want to be able to know if someone's hurting these individuals. I just don't understand, and that we want to know where these injuries are surfacing from.
Yeah, I think you make such a good point there that it's safety for everyone and protection for everyone. I mean, nobody wants to be falsely accused, right? And maybe there's an individual, an adult who's got certain disabilities that may hurt himself or herself. And if they're blamed for that and they didn't do it, again, what do you have to hide, as the senator was saying? Senator, I have to tell you another thing that apparently was a argument or is an argument, and also coming from the same individual, and I'm assuming others, is that it's a waste of resources. And this was back. Yeah. And I know you're going to laugh. Jersey. I mean, we're spending money in places that don't make any sense, like crazy. Yet the idea that, and this was even said back during the intensity of COVID and we need to spend money on personal protective equipment, cameras are a waste of resources. How does that feel when you hear that?
Well, as you said, it is hilarious when I hear that kind of statement, as you said, with the name of the advocacy group. But I was told, that, by certain individuals, well, the main problem with this bill is it's going to cost money. Well, I've researched it. There's money to be had. We have all kinds of money.
Yeah.
We had an abundance, over $8.5 billion of extra tax money. We have the COVID relief. We have federal funding. There is money. And I've said it 1,000 times and I'll continue to say it. We live in Jersey. We like to spend money. Let's spend it in the right avenues.
Amen. It's there. It's there. Money's there.
This could be the absolute right way to spend the money. Instead of worrying about doing a study on whether the reproductive of a frog or something, let's worry about our, individuals who need protection.
Again, the function of government is to protect those who are vulnerable. I mean, even if you were to pare down government, and that's a dream in itself in New Jersey, at its core essence, it is there to protect us, as a community and individuals and communities. Aileen, the other concern that brought up by the opposition, and again, I'm sort of amazed it's coming from these groups that you think would be in favor of protecting those who are vulnerable, is who's watching these tapes. They claim the bill doesn't indicate who's watching them. It would be pretty simple to indicate who can and who cannot. That seems like also like sort of a false objection, who's watching these, and also the residents have to agree to be taped in the first place. So Aileen, I want you to put yourself in the position of, again, what you are, of a parent, and you have an adult son who has issues and needs help in these homes. Would you agree to these cameras?
Absolutely. Again, it's just mind-boggling that it's very clear in the bill. It's a choice for cameras. If someone doesn't want it, they don't have to have it. It's a choice. The human rights of these disabled individuals is being taken away from them because they're not given an opportunity to have something that will protect them and the agency. As to the funding, we worked, Martha Cray, Tom Caminos, and we worked on the Stephen Caminos law. We thought our biggest hurdle was going to be the money. It wasn't the money. They allocated the money. I forget how much it was. It was over $1 million, or it's a very high budget for the life of the bill, because it's also being enforced by DHS in New Jersey. The money was not the issue. The issue was, on that bill was, an agency's fought tooth and nail on it. We wanted families to be notified as soon as possible if their loved one was hurt within an hour or sooner. Agencies, and then they changed it around to within 2 hours or as soon as possible, but in certain circumstances, it could take up to 8 hours, which that makes no sense. To me, that spells cover up. Yeah. It's going to protect everybody. So just the mindset of it, it's not understanding. And if they put this up, it's so important that it gets put up for a hearing, because everybody will be able to go out, explain, and give testimony of why this bill is so important to them. The families, as well as the opposers and those that don't agree with it. But right now, it's a disservice that, in my opinion, that Senator Vitale is doing to this population, because he's not giving the families an opportunity to speak out, and even the opposers. It's for everybody.
Okay, so that brings up a good point. And Senator, I have to ask you, why do you think Vitale is not bringing this through the committee? Why is this stalled? Have you talked to him about it? Is he giving you any kind of indication of what he's going to do next?
Well, I have spoken to Senator Vitale. As you know, I sit on the Health Committee. He's the chairman of the Health Committee. This is where the bill lies right now. And he and I have had repeated conversations about it. And his constant answer back to me is that he's getting opposition from these groups that you speak of, that they do not want it posted. But here's my problem with that. We've placed many bills up for votes and had opposition and pro for different bills. and we've posted it and we've had discussions and we've even done amendments there. Why can't we do that with this bill? What is the issues? You know, we've done it with so many bills that might have been controversial in the past, and yet that seemed to be no issue. But for some reason, we don't seem to want to move this bill and post it. And again, like I said, I do have the vote.
Yeah, you have. So again, you've done the work, right? You've talked to your fellow senators. You've done the work to get the support, bipartisan support. A democracy is supposed to be a situation where we bring bills through, and whether or not they're supported, then they live or they die. But you have to bring them into the light for you, one person to decide, I'm not going to bring a bill forward. This isn't some crazy bill. This isn't some, odd document that's put together that makes no sense. This is a common sense solution to an issue. It deserves to be debated. So we are asking Senator Vitale to bring it into the committee so it can be debated, and then it can be voted on, to bring it out of committee, to bring it to the floor. What is so scary about having people weigh in and vote and say whether or not they want to support this bill? This is what government does. I find it shocking, Senator, and I thank you for doing the work on it and getting your colleagues to come together. Aileen, you brought up the Comeninos law, which you guys got passed in 2017, ironically, and sadly, the same year that Billy Cray died in the home where he lived. It took you guys like 7 years to get that passed. This is, again, a story of why the struggle, why so difficult, why did it take so long?
That's the whole thing. There was opposers continuously against this bill. But if I could just take you back a little bit back more in the history of us advocating and going before Senator Vitale. So Senator Vitale knows of the abuse that goes on in New Jersey. He knows. And, I would think that New Jersey would want to be known as a state that does not tolerate abuse, and not as a state that tolerates abuse. As I say, the state that does not tolerate abuse, but not as a state that tolerates abuse. I first met Senator Vitale when, for the Tara O'Leary hearing. I heard about it. I went to Trenton right away to give testimony. I blew up a picture of my son really big. It was like, I think by 14 by 20. To show the injuries of my son. The Tara O'Leary bill, which it was passed, but it was for those that live in foster homes. When I started researching among this population, only 5% of this population lives in a foster home. What about the remaining 95%? So all I wanted at that point was for Senator Vitale and his committee to amend that bill to provide protection for every developmentally disabled person in the state of New Jersey, regardless of their living arrangement. Sadly, it was not voted that way, and it went through. And actually, Tara O'Leary, she was starved and abused, and she died. Then after that, we went to Assemblyman Fuentes, former Assemblyman Fuentes, Martha Cray, and I, to tell him about the abuse of stuff that's going on that our boys were enduring, and many of the families. And I have to say, I'm thankful to Senator Assemblyman Angel Fuentes, former Assemblyman Angel Fuentes, because he created the registry bill. And I went there when our former Governor Chris Christie signed it into law, where people are, if they're abused, they're put on that registry. Then after that, there was a study done here in New Jersey. It's done continuously all the time, actually every year. And in the study that was done, it was discovered that an agency had hired a former convict that had just been released from jail, who was a former murderer, that had murdered someone, and was hired to work in that group home. The study does not say what group home it was, but because of that, change came. And when I read that about the background, back then, agencies themselves would do the background checking. I reached out to Assemblywoman Valerie Huddle then, asking if she could please put legislation in to do background checks like that. The state of New Jersey takes over, not these agencies. So I know she put something through, but it's throughout the whole state of New Jersey.
Well,
then we went with,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Then we went with the Stephen Comino law. I mean, so Senator Vitale knows about, it's a history of families going before him. And before I even started advocating, we have Danielle's law, Robin and her sister advocated for this law because Danielle ends up dying and from neglect. So we have in New Jersey Danielle's law, where agencies have to call 911. They have to call 911 if someone is. I apologize about that. Oh my gosh,
That's okay.
sorry.
That's your dog barking. It's all right. That's okay.
Senator Vitale knows of what is going on. We've been before him at this point. I personally have been before him, I think about 12, 14 years
Right.
now at this point.
Right.
I'm going, giving testimony of the need. So I don't understand.
Yeah.
I personally feel it's a disservice, and I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not being disrespectful, but what else can I think? If he's not. Listen, we've had campaigns of families sending emails to him, campaigns of families reaching out to him by phone calls. We've had reporters reach out to him, and he will not
Right.
engage in any communication or even list this bill for a hearing. So
Right.
again, it's sad that it's, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm going to say it's sad that the lives of these intellectually disabled people is not really being valued, and it's not of an importance for him to put it on. It is sad.
It's sad. It's very concerning, and we don't seem to have a good answer. And the senator, obviously, you've asked him. There's always somebody against something, right? You could put any bill forward, and there's always going to be somebody against it. Since when does that stop us from having a good conversation? And we have predators all around us, and they're being allowed to enter these homes in some cases, as you said, Aileen. And we're just putting people that may not be able to communicate well with us. You hear stories about elder abuse. Often, your parents may be in a home, they may get abused. In many cases, they can tell you that. We're talking about adults who can't always communicate what's happening to them. And that's on us. We have to protect them. Senator, you put out in August, I believe it was, a resolution memorializing Billy Cray. That's a beautiful thing to do. Your story in itself, even winning your election, is kind of David versus Goliath. Why does it feel like these kind of things are in that same vein? It's like David versus Goliath. We just want to do something to protect the innocent and the vulnerable, and we're just up against this machine that won't allow it to go through.
Well, as you said, in August, when I researched Billy a little and speaking to Martha and Aileen, I thought, the slow track of the Billy Cray law was going, and I would see how they would do resolution. I thought, at the very least, the state of New Jersey could at least honor an individual who they were supposed to protect and didn't own up to it. Let's honor him with the day. So that's when I came up with the resolution. As far as the bill's not moving, it's frustrating to say the least. I hate to think it's all about politics, but it tends to lean me that way, and it's unfortunate. But because one time Senator Vitale said to me, he's like, "Well, what's the point in putting the bill for? It's not going to get signed by the governor." So I reached out to the governor's office. They have no position. They are not opposed to it. They are not favoring it. They did not have a position. So that statement, I don't know if he knows something I don't know, but they told me they were not opposed to it. So this is stalled here, and this is only here because, again, I went out and I went and made sure I had support on both sides, because in the Republican side, we only have 16 senators, and we need 21 to get the bill passed.
Right.
So I made sure I had the 21.
You've done the work. You've done the work, and the governor's office doesn't have a position, which means they may be open to it. And it's certainly worth seeing. Let's see how far we can go with this. As we wrap up here, this is such an important issue, and I want to thank you both, because, Senator, you've always stood up for the little guy, for the vulnerable. You've always been that individual who fights for those without a voice. I think that's definitely a brand that you've created, and it's true to who you are. Aileen, you've done so much work in this community and for this community, and I know a lot of other things. You have a very long resume, and people have recognized that. You have a big heart, and you commit yourself to this, and obviously it's personal for you. Just a last note to everybody, Aileen, what do you want them to do, the everyday citizen? What can they do to support this effort?
Continue calling Senator Vitale's office. I mean, he can run, but he can't hide. He's up for re-election in the near future. I mean, he's been a politician for 20 plus years. This is why people are losing faith in career politicians, because they're serving for a long time.
Yeah.
Site, when you have all these, you have evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and it's not being a bill is not being listed that's going to protect everybody. It's not only the person with disabilities, it protects the agency. It also shows that New Jersey is showing transparency, and that we care as a state for every single citizen in New Jersey, regardless of their race, their nationality, whether they could vote, whether they cannot vote. They're human beings. So I just wish, and I hope that his heart softens up and he lists this bill for a hearing, because people are losing faith in this. And I've come across so many people, even from his district, that they're not happy with the way he's representing this population.
Yeah.
So I just hope he, like I said, his heart softens up and he puts this bill up for a hearing. It's really the right thing to do. And for families, we'll continue calling. I mean, we're not going to go away. I mean, even one of us, we could be here, or any legislator, anybody could be in a car accident and have received such injuries that you're now, at this point now, you're intellectually disabled. So it may even protect you down the road. I don't mean you know what I'm saying, but I'm saying we as a whole, it protects everybody. So I hope, Senator Vitale does put this bill up. It's really the right thing to do.
Well, Aileen,
to serve the people.
It is a few points I need to really underscore that you said. First of all, this is a growing community. It's not shrinking. We have more and more learning challenged, youth and disabilities, and we're seeing autism on the rise and the spectrum. Mm-hmm. This is not a group that's getting smaller. And yes, someone, God forbid, could be in an accident and become disabled in that way, but we are seeing just in general, and whether it's a toxic environment we live in, I don't know what's going on that's creating this entirely, but this is not a shrinking group. And so we have a challenge on our hands as more and more of these young people become adults and they need support from the state. This is a growing population. We need to address it. The other point you brought up is everyone, as Senator knows very well, is up for election this year, 2023, all 120 seats. That includes all the senators, all the assembly people are up for election. So, it matters. We're watching. And to those listening to this, these senators will be serving us for 4 years. This is their 4-year term. So think long and hard about who you vote for and what their record has been. So Senator Durr, again, thank you to you. I'll give you the last word just to underscore how important this is and to give people something to do to support what you're trying to get passed.
Well, all I ask is, as Aileen said, call Senator Vitale's office. Just express that, just put the bill up. Let the people decide. Let them have a voice in hearing, because this is ultimately what it's about, the people's voice. And by not posting the bill, you give no voice to the people that have expressed their beliefs in what they want. If it gets voted down, it gets voted down. But let's at least have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called democracy. That's why it's called democracy. Everybody comes out, but democracy is not taking place right now because this bill is not being listed.
All right. Well, we are going to do some advocacy work with you to try to get this out into the light. So again, on behalf of New Jersey and Jersey First, we thank both of you always for what you do. I hope to have you back with good news at some point to say that this has actually gone to a vote in some way. But let's see what we can do with the good citizens of New Jersey. Once usually most of them learn about these things, they do have a tendency to take action. So we will pray that happens soon. So again, thank you to both of you, and to my audience. Be looking for information on how you can support this. At a minimum, call the senator's office. Let your senators know. This bill is S18. It's 1897.
97.
Yeah,
S1897.
1897, Billy Cray's law. All right, guys. Thank you so much to both of you, and to my audience. We will see you next week.